Ladies and gentlemen, this here is a GTX 970, and if found at the right price like I did, this honestly might be the best bang for your buck used GPU here in 2018. Today, I'm going to show you guys why by benchmarking 10 games. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. Today we're going to be checking out this GTX 970, benchmarking it, and seeing if it's worth your money here in 2018. And if you want to see more graphics card videos or benchmarking videos, then hit that subscribe button down below and also that notification bell. That way you never miss an episode. But yeah, let's check this thing out. So this specific graphics card we're looking at today is the Asus 4GB GDDR5 version, which is packing a base clock of 1114 MHz and a boost clock of 1253 MHz. Now yes, we're all aware that this kinda only has 3.5 GB of VRAM, but let's just move past it because that's like 5 years old at this point. I personally picked up this GTX 970 used on the Mercari app for exactly $150 with free shipping. After doing a quick scroll through the completed items on eBay, it seems like 970s are going anywhere from $140 all the way up to $200. I personally think that $150 is the sweet spot for the GTX 970. You could even get away with paying like $175, but if you pay anything more than that, then you might as well get something newer like a GTX 1060. Also, keep in mind that the graphics card does require at least a 500 watt power supply and an 8-pin PSU connector. Our testing platform today is our normal testing rig, which is rocking a Ryzen 5 2600X, 8GB of DDR4 RAM clocked at 2933 MHz, and the games are installed on a standard Western Digital hard drive. This is actually a pretty solid balance in terms of bottlenecking, but more than likely if you're buying this card used, then you're probably gonna also have a little bit older used CPU. We're gonna be benchmarking all our games with this card in 1080p, but keep in mind that you can always raise your resolution to 1440p and knock the graphics down a bit, or if you're rocking a higher refresh rate monitor, you could always keep it at 1080p and crank the settings down a bit as well. The first game up was Fortnite, like every benchmarking video should these days, and in 1080p with epic settings, aka as high as they go, this system averaged 84 frames per second. I actually made a dedicated video benchmarking Fortnite with a ton of budget graphics cards if you're interested in that one as well. Sticking with the Battle Royale theme, I tested PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds up next, which we all know is still a pretty tough game to run, and in 1080p Ultra settings, also as high as they go, the GTX 970 cranked out a very impressive 71 FPS. Counter-Strike Global Offensive was up next, definitely a much easier to run game than PUBG, and in 1080p high settings with no AA, these are the settings I use for all my benchmarking videos by the way, I averaged 203 FPS, which is perfect for those 144Hz monitors. For this video, I decided to add Battlefield 1 to the mix, which usually isn't in my benchmarking lineup, although it probably should be, and here in 1080p with Ultra settings, we got a very respectable 73 FPS. This benchmarking run was done on a 64 map online server by the way, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. Rocket League trailed behind, and in 1080p with high quality settings, there is no Ultra or anything, we averaged 154 FPS and was obviously super smooth. Doom 2016 was up next, and in 1080p Ultra settings, we stayed well above 100 FPS, which is very impressive for this game. Doom is about as GPU dependent as games get these days, so it was nice to see the GTX 970 basically eating this game in 1080p for breakfast. Next up, I fired up Grand Theft Auto 5. Now this one is a more CPU dependent of a game, so take that for what it's worth, and in 1080p with very high settings, we averaged 91 FPS. I fired up Project Cars 2 after this, a very beautiful looking game, especially with the 1080p Ultra settings that I used, and here I averaged 73 FPS. Please excuse my terrible driving as I was using an Xbox controller for this video, and this game is definitely designed to be used with a proper sim racing wheel setup. This still pretty new Warhammer Vermintide 2 was up next. This one is actually pretty demanding to run, and in 1080p with extreme settings, the GTX 970 was still able to crank out an impressive 58 FPS. You can definitely knock the settings down to high if you wanted to stay above that 60 FPS target if you wanted to. And finally, the last benchmarking game I used was the Far Cry 5 in-game benchmark. This one is terribly demanding demanding to run, and in 1080p with ultra settings, we stayed just above that 60 FPS mark. So there you have it. Those are some very impressive results from a graphics card that's almost 5 years old now and costs only 150 bucks. This card is still dominating 1080p gaming and can certainly handle most titles in 1440p if you crank the settings down to probably about medium. You can definitely bet you'll see this card in some future used builds of mine. I kind of want to see how it would perform in that $300 build I did, which utilized the GTX 780 Ti. Well, that wraps up my review of the GTX 970 here in 2018. I absolutely love taking an older graphics card like this and making an entire video on it, so be sure to let me know down in the comment section what card you want to see next or what component in general you want to see. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please drop a like down below to help support my channel, and as always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more Zach's Tech Turf videos.